Hello everyone. Today I'm going to teach you how to use props in React Hook. And on previous video we learned how to use effect in React Hook. And if you are new to my channel, don't forget to press subscribe and enable the bell to get all new videos and content. And also I will advise you, if this is the first video to watch here on React Hook tutorial, then try to go and start from previous videos so you can understand what we are doing here on this video. And I will leave the playlist URL down of this video so to know more about the tutorial. So let's start. We'll continue from the same place that we stopped on previous video. And here before go further, and if you see here, we created home component inside source directory. So the convenient way, or the normal way, that when we have multiple components, we'll create a directory called components to make our code more organized. So let's create just new directory here called components. So just because I'm going to create new component today to explain how to use props and to pass it across different components. So here inside this components, first I'm going to move this home inside this directory after we create it. And that is now moved. If you see, our application is crashed because this directory is being changed. We need to go back to our app.js component and update this root to access the correct one. So now it is a slash dot slash components is slash home. Save it, and that should fixing it. That now is fine. If you go back to this home.js, as you see here, we have two buttons, one of them to increase and one of them to decrease the counter. And one of the good feature about React, so it's a components. So to avoid duplicating yourself and having duplicated code, you can create one component and then reuse it across different components. So in this scenario, for example, we have good example here, a button. We can create a button component, then we can use it multiple times instead of duplicating all of this here code like twice or 3 or 4 times if we have like bigger application. So let's just start do that one. First, let's go create new component size this directory. Just press this file here after select components, then press this file icon. We can call it button, and otherwise the component will be with the uppercase letter, button.jsx. And here we can start writing our component const. Then the name of it will be button. Assign it to callback function or arrow function, E6 syntax. And inside here, we are going to return a button, just HTML button, and closing this button. And here just will be the title of the button itself, title. And after we created our component, we need to export it. Just export default and the name of the component, button. Now we created our component and we export it. How to use it inside home? We need to home component. We need to import it first at the top here. Import button from, because it is in the same directory, just will be dot slash button, and just closing it, save it. And we need to use it, we need to call it. Basically we imported but we didn't call it yet. For example, now if you just call it on an end of this return here before or after just this button, we need to open less than, then your component name button, then it has to be with the uppercase first letter button, and then a slash, and then greater than. This is how you can call your component. This should be, here has some mistake here, should be T instead of U. And now save it. If you see here on our screen or in our browser is rendering here this new button with the title of it. So this is how we can create a component, and as I mentioned on, or how as I taught you on previous videos, and how we can import it on another different component and we can use it. So this, we don't need to use it just like that. We need to pass like this a specific title, for example. So this button is, it will expect a title, and also it will expect a callback function, and also has this style and all of these things. But let's start one by one. So we need to pass now a title or as a props to this component. So to pass a title, just after your component name here, you can add a space, then try to add your props name. In this scenario, we are going to pass a title, will be title. Then you need to assign it to a value. For example, if we need to use this here, this calls this increase counter, pass it as a title. So this is our props passed down to this button. For example, if you go to this button component, and here this will be expected as a props or argument. So if we need to debug this props and see, we can add a console log here, console log, and just add this props and save it. If we open here our browser console and open this here, this is a console basically on that component, and see now this title is being passed. If you need to make sure this is the right console, you can add the text here. For example, it's called button component, and close it, and just add this here to make sure this is the right console that you are calling. This one here now is calling button component, and this is a value. It's an object with a title. The title is called increase counter. That's the first step, how to pass a props. Well done, that's a good step. So now how we can use that props here, instead of this hard-coded title, we can just open curly braces, and inside we can call just props.title. Now we're accessing our title, and that is dynamically being added. You see this? Now the button is getting the dynamic title, so, or the props title. So that's the first step is done. Next step, we can pass a callback function. Basically, we can use a pass on click here. So if we go back to our home, here we have this on click, and we have decrease and increase. Instead of decrease and increase, we can just pass on click handler. So we can pass another props here, call it on click handler, on click handler, and then the value will be depending on which button that you need to pass to. For example, on this scenario, for increase counter, we need to pass increase counter function. So in this scenario, we can pass increase counter function down here. And if we save this one and try here, see our console log and open it again, now we have two props basically. One props a function called on click handler, and the second one called title. So now we have two. We have title, we have on click handler. We can use them. Already we use the title. Let's see how we can use this on click handler. So this button element we can pass also. We can call a handler on click, just the same as on home component. We can call on click here, and this on click it can fire a function basically. To which function that we need to fire, it will be passed to this props. It will be called props dot on click handler. As you see, the VS Code is helping us. So that's how we can call it. So on click handler is a method or a handler, or even that will be passed to this button. So this handler, it will fire this function. This function we can access it from top level or from home component. It will be passed down to this button as a props. This is how we can define. You can call it whatever the name of this props, but the value, it should be same as the function that you need to call. Basically, this is the function that we need to call when we're pressing increase counter button. So first, if we need to summarize this, we can define our props name, and the props name you can call it whatever, but it should be something makes sense. And then the value, it should be the things that we need to call, or the things that we need to render. For example, in this scenario, it will be a title, or maybe if we need a function we need to fire, in this scenario, it will be increase counter. And then in our button component, already we have this handler, then it will call this function. And in between here, instead of dynamic or a static title, we'll use this props title. So now we have on click and we have a title. So now we can use this button for both of them, but first let's just test it for this. It still is working fine. If we save it, and here we have this button increase, still we have 3 buttons here. We need to remove this first one, this first button, we don't need it anymore. And if we save it, now this new button, we have it. Let's just move this new button on the previous button position, save it. That is now working fine, but the CSS is not working. Let's just move the CSS to the button component itself, move it from here and go to the button component and adding it just after this or just before this on click, and save it. Here is our style and this is our on click function. That the styles work fine now. And if we go back to home.js, now we can duplicate this button, and instead of increase we can call this decrease or decrease button, and instead of calling this increase counter, we can call decrease counter, and we're passing decrease counter. If you notice that we still using the same on click handler because it's a props name, but the value is different. That's the difference to understand between props name and the props value. So the props name always will be the same because it will be this component reused in across different component. We're using the same props name, but the props value will be different on each different component or for different scenarios. Or in this scenario here, because we have 2 different button, and each button has different title and has different on-click handler or value here or a function. That now is very good example and scenario to explain this here. So now we can remove this decrease button component, and we can save it. It still should be everything work as it was before. As you see now, we have the 2 buttons. They look same as the previous 2 buttons, but let's see the functional still works same or not. If we press increase, that is increasing now, which is work perfectly, and if we decrease, that is also work. It shouldn't go lower than 0. So still we're keeping the same functionality and same UI by having less code. So we have only 1 component here. This component we can apply additional more functional, we can add more props to make it more reusable. So this is how to pass a props down to a component, and how to use a component on other components. And I hope that was simple and easy. And if you have any question, just leave a comment down. And again, if you are new to my channel, press subscribe button and enable the bell to get all new videos and content. And if you already subscribed, just leave a comment say that I subscribe, so that will let me know all the people subscribe to my channel and we can have more chat. All right, thank you. See you soon. Bye bye.